the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men with power want? More power.
And now, broadcasting live from deep within the borders of occupied liberal territory known as California, Luca Zanna with Love, Guns, and Freedom.
All systems go.
Don't tread on us. We're not afraid. You work for us. We're not your slaves. Don't tread on us. You crossed the line. Soon you will pay.
Hi everybody, this is Luca Zanna. You're listening to Love, Guns and Freedom on K-Talks 1340 AM and of course on the internet all over the world. You can get your live feed at lovegunsfreedom.com. Okay, another Sunday, another 2-hour show. I'm really excited today, more than ever. I'm always excited, honestly, and I would like to tell you again, I'm very thankful because as you know, I didn't expect this in my life. First of all, as you know, I was born as Italian, and for me to be able to come all the way to America and to become one American and to live in the state of Arizona, more important, that I dreamt about this since I was a child, since I started to watch my first spaghetti western movies, it's kind of a miracle. And to be here on the air with me, with you guys, listeners, and even with my limitations, you know, I try to do the best I can, try to communicate. English, even now, it's my only language because I'm trying to speak English only. It's still my language that I'm learning. So I appreciate your help, and more important, I appreciate the honor to be here. I would like to remind you the purpose of this show. Love, Guns, and Freedom, it is not to entertain. You know, seriously, you can find much better shows about that. For me, this is a serious matter. When I became an American, I took an oath in 2005, 29th of April, and the oath was to defend this republic against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the best way I believe we can defend this republic is learning about the truth, learning about the laws, learning about our rights, learning about how we can regain our rights, because we are under attack. So that's pretty much the purpose. I'm here, and that's my goal. Try to help each other in learning from each other. And of course, we talk about also guns. That's one of the things I liked the most when I came to America, because it's not about the guns itself. For me, the gun is just a tool. More important, is an extension of my soul, and is the tool to be free. Also to make a declaration to any government in the world that slaves are never armed, and I am not a slave. Okay, let's talk about today's special guest. We have 2 hours. The first hour we have somebody that I really respect a lot from a professional point of view, and also, you know, somebody that is a different type of guy. You will see is Mr. Brad Ackman, is a Front Sight Nevada operational manager, and also is a handgun combat master. Front Sight, I don't know if you know about it, but everybody should know about it. Everybody that at least is into guns and self-defense is located in Pahrump, Nevada, and is the #1 firearm institute in volume, and I also believe, my opinion, also in quality of the curriculum for the world. We have more than 33,000 students trained each year at Front Sight. So the first hour with Mr. Brad Ackman, we will talk about several important things. And then we have the second hour, we have a local guest from Lake Havasu, Mr. Sam Scamardo. He's also the owner of Sam Shooter's Emporium, the gun shop. Before we start, I need to thank the sponsors, because this is a free market enterprise. We don't point a gun at your face like the government does when ask you for money. We are asking politely, and we appreciate the help from our sponsors. So we have, first of all, our sponsor is MP Gun Sales from Fort Mojave in front of Maverick, 4470 Highway 95. They are great people. They're also very competent. I bought from them just a few weeks ago a nice Caltech Sub 2000 40 cal, very hard to find normally. And Neil is a great guy. So please call them, 444-5905. Also, we have another great sponsor. It's a great gun owner, by the way. He went with me to Front Sight. I invited him at my party. His name is Tom Sanford, and his lovely wife. They have a business. It's called the Colorado River Vapor, and they're located in 4400 South Highway 95, Suite C. And you can also call them 928-763-3536. So thank you for the sponsor. Now, sponsors, let's start with our guests. Let me first of all get them on. Brad, are you there?
I'm here, Luca.
Nice to meet you again, Brad.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Normally, I always see you when you're there, introduce us to the 4 days or 2 days classes when I am. By the way, I forgot to say to the people, I am a Front Sight member and I'm an ambassador. But today you're here not because we have no connection commercially. I brought you here because I believe in the service that Front Sight has been doing, educating American people about the Second Amendment and the right of self-defense in the different type of disciplines. So I found invaluable information, and I would like to remind all the listeners that you are not here as a paid sponsors, but you are here because I believe in the information we're going to share today.
Right, that's correct. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Perfect. So listen, I would like to go straight to business with you because I know you are I like the way you run business, by the way. I would like to remind the listeners that Front Sight, what I'm impressed, you have every year more than 30,000 students, and I see a discipline and a professionalism that I could not happen all that what you're doing, guys, if you didn't have down to the second. That's something that I really think is very important. I would like to also say one thing. We live in the state of Arizona, and I don't know if you're familiar. We have a few years ago, I have a constitutional carry that pretty much says that you can carry, any law-abiding citizen can buy a gun, and he doesn't even need any more a permit or any type of qualification to carry that gun. But I also say to my listeners and to my friends, with freedom comes responsibility. And even if we don't have any more to ask for a permit or to qualify it, according to the state, we should, it's our duty to try to do our best to be safe and to be proficient. That's why always when I'm on the air, like we talked a few weeks ago with the Sheriff Mack, that probably you're familiar with, he came to Front Sight too. We were talking about Front Sight, how much is important as for us law-abiding citizens to try to learn as much as we can. And in my little, experience as a gun owner, as a new American, when I found Front Sight, I got all my answers. So at least I started my journey with you, and I was so proud to have found you. Now, let's start with first number question. First of all, let's introduce yourself to the listeners. Who is Brett Ackman? A little bit about your professional curriculum. Who are you?
Sure. Of course, as you mentioned, I'm one of the operations managers at Front Sight. For a decade, more than a decade, I was the only operations manager, but as we have continued to grow and add staff, and as you mentioned, we train tens of thousands of students every year, we now have a large management staff, and I'm proud to be part of that. My background in terms of shooting is really got started back in the early 1980s under Jeff Cooper, who is now deceased, but he was really the founding father for modern defensive handgunning and defensive firearms use in general. He, too, lived in Arizona. I had a scary situation when I was in high school, and I decided I needed some training. I came to the realization that I was a gun owner and definitely not a gun fighter. So I sought out some training. That led me to Jeff Cooper way back when in the early 1980s. I became an instructor under him there in Arizona in the mid-1980s. And that's where I first met Dr. Piazza, who is the founder and director of Front Sight. He came through and took a course under Jeff Cooper. He and I hit it off nicely. We were of similar age, similar interest, similar enthusiasm. So I had met Dr. Piazza way back when, and around the late 1980s, Dr. Piazza decided, he wanted to create a school to really train the masses in terms of defensive firearms use. And he thought he could do it better than anybody else, which, of course, has panned out exactly so. And he asked me if I would like to be the operations manager in that endeavor. I wholeheartedly agreed. And so that was really the beginning of my association with Front Sight. We started the company of Front Sight back in 1992, but it took a while before we could have a facility that we could train at. And that was in April of 1996. We started at a leased facility in California, and then in January of 1998, we moved to our current facility just outside of Las Vegas, about 45 minutes northwest of Las Vegas, as you mentioned, just outside the town of Pahrump. So that's where we are currently. It's a 550-acre facility, lots and lots of ranges, lots of staff, and as you mentioned, we run like a Swiss watch. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see 30,000 people, or this year we anticipate more like 50,000 people.
Wow.
And be able to train them with the efficiency that you mentioned. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell. Came up through the academic ranks. I do not have law enforcement or military experience. I've been a competitor and a trainer from the very beginning.
And question, please. I had this information from sources. Please confirm if I'm right. I think I am. You're a handgun combat master, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, what does it mean? And I know that only few people in the world achieve that type of goal of expertise. What does it mean for the public?
Right. Handgun Combat Master is a title that's bestowed upon somebody who has successfully passed a specific test. It's a skills test or a qualification course. It has the title of combat, which would connote that somebody is shooting back at you, and that's definitely not the case. This is a range exercise. It was created by a gentleman named Chuck Taylor back in, I think, 1980, maybe perhaps 1981. And it is a very difficult course of fire. It involves 80 rounds, a lot of it from the holster, distances from 0 to 50 yards, lots of things like malfunctions and reloads, etc. So it's a very difficult course of fire. Since that time, whatever that is, 34 years or something that test has been in existence, there's only perhaps 40, 45 people in the world who have passed that test. And I was happy to be one of those people. I passed that back in April of 2000. Dr. Piazza passed it, I think it was in August of 1993.
Wow.
So he's also a handgun combat master. Dr. Piazza is also a 4-weapons combat master, which is a combination test of handgun, shotgun, rifle, and submachine gun. He's one of only 5 people who've passed that test. So, yes, the Handgun Combat Master is a very difficult, dare I say, elite test, but it has the unfortunate title of combat, which some people get sideways with. They think that this should represent skill at arms on the battlefield or something like that. And that's not the case. It's strictly a qualification course.
I know, but it's also true, though, that when you achieve that type of expertise, even, of course, nobody shooting back at you, you still are in a very, honestly, I will tell you something. I've seen many law enforcement people coming for the first time at the basic 4-handgun class that you offer as a curriculum, and I'm glad that they're going to the class. Let's put it in this way, because it is a really good, one thing I learned from front sight, and I've always been like that in my life. I'm there to learn. My attitude is, I don't know. I came there because I want to know, and there is so much to learn. And that's why when I did my first class, was a gift from a friend, say, come with me, well, let's do a 4-day class. He was already a member. I was, just moved to Arizona. And of course, you can have guns. As you said before, you are gun owners. Doesn't mean that you are somebody able to defend yourself with a gun in the right way, also to be safe, So when I did the first time, I went there and I went to the full 4 days, and I realized how much I didn't know. That was, for me, the most beautiful day of my life. I say, wow, I can't believe it as an American person, as a citizen, as a human being, not a military, not a professional, I'm able to have access to such vital information that it's my duty, because I realize really that when you decide, you make the ethical decision to carry a weapon, I don't care which weapon, you are committing yourself to a higher standard. And on top, you can't fake it. We are accountable for every round. And what I like about your classes is not just about, of course, the safety, that I think it's a must. It's not just about the training or the curriculum, it's must. It's also the mindset that we will talk a little bit with you. And also about understanding the legal responsibility and moral responsibility that we have as a gun owner. So that's why I said, it's for me, it's been one of the most beautiful experiences. I'm not trying to say that everything's perfect. Sometimes I know that we are there, we try to give our feedback to improve things. But at the end of the day, your curriculum is top. And when I see law enforcement people or people coming from federal agencies with a big ego, I have a couple of friends myself, and they start to almost cry at the end of the 4-day class because,
Right.
they can even distinguish, and they are the big guys, and
Right.
made me laugh, So,
Sure.
Liz, they're talking
Well,
about...
I appreciate your comments regarding front sight. We definitely we cater to the masses, if you will, the new shooter as well as the experienced shooter. And front sight has a curriculum that will really fine-tune your skills, whatever they are. If they are 0, then we will instill those skills in you. We'll build them up. And after 4 days, you're going to have a serious skill set, which is going to serve you well on the street. If you're an experienced shooter, well, as you mentioned, some of the law enforcement and military folks who we see, we're going to find whatever deficiencies they have, and we're going to fine-tune them. We're going to polish them, and they're going to be much better than after 4 days than when they arrived.
Perfect.
So really, front sight's curriculum is for everybody. I do want to comment when you
Yes.
say you realized that you didn't know. In other words, you didn't know what you didn't know. That was exactly me as well. I was very fortunate to have that realization vicariously through somebody else. As I mentioned, when I was in high school, a friend of mine got into a shooting, and I laughed. He didn't do a very good job. He survived, and the bad guy got shot, so it worked out in the end. But he really didn't do a very good job. And I was kind of laughing and poking fun at him. And then I started to think, what would I have done? How would I have performed in that situation? And I realized that I would have done worse. I perhaps would have gotten killed. And that realization is what started me on a path of firearms training and, of course, a firearms instructor. So you and I got lucky. A lot of people have that realization only when they're looking down the muzzle, and it's at that point too late. So that's what we're trying to instill in people. Get them on the right path before it's too late.
Exactly. And on top, for me, people need to understand that you don't go there intimidated. I mean, you need to go there with the open mind, open heart, to receive, to leave everything you have home and start to get almost saturated with the information you have. Because I tell you, the first time I did my 4-day class, 4 days class, I mean, it was almost too much for a regular brain like mine for the first time. But then I realized, even if I don't capture all the information the first time, I come back home, I'm already a safer shooter. I'm already a better shooter. At least I'm on top. I mean, I'm beginning my journey. That's what I like, because, guys, when you go there, and there is, at the end of the 4 days, now we will talk about the basic handgun class. The 4 days handgun class, I think, is one of the best you carry there as a curriculum. It is not about a competition. It is a journey that you decide to start with yourself. And what I like about the test, there is a sort of a, point system. It is for you to see after the class how your journey, how you want to continue your journey, how you want to improve. It's almost like a Zen for me. I mean, I am the most peaceful person, and people think, you like guns, you must be violent. No, I think guns, first of all, is a tool to defend life and to save life, number one. But more important, it's almost like, for me, a discipline that put me in a condition to concentrate and try to improve my skills, because it's not just physical, it's a coordination between mind and your body. That's what I really like. Let's talk about, first of all, let's give an idea to the listeners. There are different courses that you offer at Frontside. It is not just about handgun. Tell me the basic course that you offer besides handgun, please, Brett.
Sure. As you mentioned, Luca, our primary course, our flagship course, if you will, is the 2- and 4-day defensive handgun. So those are offered either on a weekend format or a weekday format, and about 80% of our students start in that curriculum, whether it's 2- or 4-day handgun. But as you mentioned, that's not all we offer. We definitely train in shotgun, rifle, submachine gun, precision rifle, what some people would call sniper rifle, all of the firearms. However, we go beyond that, because there are a lot of times you cannot carry a firearm, but you might be able to carry a knife. So we do edged weapons training. Also, there are times when you can't even carry a knife. For example, in a courtroom, on an airplane, you can't carry anything, but you always have your hands. So we have a curriculum for empty hand defense, which is, of course, a hand-to-hand combat style course. We also do lots of rope and rappelling training. We have a huge ropes facility that's been on the property for about 10 years. We do lots of different technical training and also corporate team development. We do lots of Boy Scout training, that sort of thing. We also cater to the kids, because children are the next generation. Those are the ones that are going to carry the torch forward into the future, and we spend a lot of time training the kids. That's not only in firearms, but also empty hand defense, rope and rappelling training, fun stuff like desert navigation, and it's a whole experience for 2 or 4 days that they're with us. But we fully acknowledge that those kids are really the next generation, and we're excited to have them on the property. So we offer lots of training, but as you mentioned, 2 and 4 day handgun is our flagship course.
Question. I'm sure that many people that they're listening, they think, oh my God, you must be some sort of a Rambo to attend frontside. Maybe even ladies, they can be intimidated. And I don't want to answer because I already know the answer, but I would like you, probably better than me, can say, what is your typical frontside student? Well, if you can describe him or describe her.
Sure. Of course, we see so many students from all walks of life, from all over the country and from international locations, that there is no typical student. But I can tell you some of the basic students that we see, lots and lots of mainstream America. Everything from professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, through soccer moms, through retirees, and of course I mentioned children. So we see a broad spectrum. We do see lots of ladies. In the early days, back in 1996, we probably had 2 or 3% of our students were female. It was very small. Today, it's more like 30 to 35%. On some courses, it's 50% of the students are ladies. So we see lots of ladies. Of course, we see lots of retirees, too. And those are the folks who perhaps have a more casual schedule, and they can afford to come out and spend some time with us. So it's a broad spectrum of mainstream America.
And I really like also what you're doing, because people think, in the past, I know used to be very much more exclusive, or at least more expensive, different type of formula of marketing and type of even packages. That lately, the last few years, since I also joined, I saw that there is an opening for the marketing, also Dr. Piazza philosophy, try to reach almost everybody. I mean, I'm not a wealthy person. I'm just a regular guy, and I was able to afford and to get part of the frontside family. And I was so proud. Now I see, for example, of course, as you say, very high-hand, white collars, great. And then I see also now a lot of people that they're regular workers, blue collars, people that they really have to save their money, but they do it because they understand the importance. And that's what, for me, when people ask around, social justice, this is for me social justice, like an affordable gun and affordable training. That's what I mean, And right. I'm very happy about that. So let's talk a little bit about something that we all can relate, regardless that you're carrying a gun or not. And more important, probably is going to be the most important thing that I really learned before I went to the range. I like very much your classes that you do during the lunch break. And the word is called Code of Mental Awareness. I think something that probably originally was from Jeff Cooper's book. He wrote a book about it. Can you tell us, please, to the listeners, first of all, the importance of this Code of Mental Awareness and exactly what it is in a few words?
Sure. The Color Code of Mental Awareness is a system which allows the user to codify the mental awareness and, more importantly, to avoid trouble. Because the best gunfight is the one where no shots are fired. The best gunfight is the one that you avoid. And you are likely to avoid that gunfight by the use of the Color Code of Mental Awareness. Okay? So that's why that thing is so critical. If you can avoid the gunfight, you absolutely should. Front Sight believes that, again, the best gunfight is the one that never occurs. We're not about shooting people and getting in gunfights and high-fiving and drinking beers at the bar afterwards. I know a lot of people in the industry have that kind of mindset, and it is definitely not Front Sight. That is not what we promote. Avoid the gunfight if you possibly can. Okay, so with that caveat in place, let's talk about the Color Code of Mental Awareness. And you're right, it came originally from Jeff Cooper. He codified it and put it into a nice, palatable package that everybody can use. And it really comes in terms of 5 different colors. At the bottom is condition white, moving up to yellow, orange, red, and black. Now, there's a couple of varieties in the industry where there might be 4 colors instead of 5, etc. It depends upon which reference you check. But the short of this is condition white is where you are not paying attention. You are oblivious, your head's in the clouds, and you are an easy victim.
Like, for
That's
example,
not where you want to be.
Well, let's say when you see a lot of people walking out of the supermarket, like Safeway or whatever, texting while they're going to their car, and or these young kids that they text all day long while they walk like little drones, and they don't even know really what's going on around there. I mean, that's pretty much the typical white, right?
Correct. Yeah, texting is probably the best example, modern example anyway, of condition white. Your attention is on the phone, you're punching the buttons, and the whole world is passing you by. Somebody could literally walk up and hit you over the top of the head, and you would never know it until it was too late.
And at that point, I don't care how good you are with your weapon. You really have not a chance even to use your skills. That's the bottom line.
You won't even, that's right, you won't even know the fight is brewing because you don't see it coming.
Okay, what is about instead a condition yellow, the next stage?
Yellow is general awareness. You're basically paying attention to your environment. It's not paranoia. You don't think everybody's out to get you. Your head is up, your eyes are open, you're paying attention to your environment. And that is where you need to live your life, obviously, because condition yellow is where you are safe. You see the world for what it is, you see what's brewing, you see the trouble, and you can avoid it. And more importantly, bad guys will avoid you, because bad guys are looking for somebody hanging out in condition white because they're an easy victim. Condition yellow is not an easy victim. So condition yellow is where you're safe. That's general awareness.
So if we could give a little bit of a tip to our listeners, especially people that they're still, learning a little bit and get into this self-defense mindset, be aware of your environment so you can avoid any confrontation, and you be, if you are not aware of the problem is going to get you, and that's going to be too late. So it's very important, because I tell you something, when I did the first seminar, you guys, the first class, and I went to the first, we were talking about this at the lunchtime, the class, some of this stuff by instinct we all know, but then you don't realize that we are not disciplined enough to put it in action in our daily life. And what it really started to give me the opportunity, since after I attended your class, I really started to say, oh my God, how really much I don't pay attention enough. And I put it as a sort of, now I see the world in a different way. And as you said, I'm not paranoid, I'm just aware. And that's the most beautiful thing I learned the first day I came there,
Right, and condition yellow, as you say, is not paranoid. It's very comfortable because you see what's going on. You can analyze that situation, and it's very friendly and comfortable. And as I say, more importantly, the bad guys are going to avoid you.
Okay.
Condition yellow is where you are safe. That's where you need to be.
What is the next condition? Yes, go ahead.
Moving up from yellow is condition orange, and orange is where you spot something specific. It's a little weird. Something doesn't quite fit in, and now you have some work to do. You got to figure out, what is that? Is it really a problem, or is it just an anomaly? You got to try to figure out the intent of that person or people involved. And then you got to form a plan. If it really is some dangerous situation, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to avoid it? Go around it? Get on the phone, dial 911, drive away. What are your options? You got to form a plan. And you need to maintain this general awareness, because we've all seen these situations where the rats are operating in packs. So you have one individual who approaches, he's kind of the decoy, or the person who's going to attract your attention, while the real problem approaches from the rear. So you need to maintain that 360-degree vigilance. So condition orange is a little tough, but it's about a specific potential problem. That's condition orange.
Meanwhile, I see people trying to call in. Guys, if you have any questions, please, I'm on Facebook right now. Or you can send me a quick email at zanna@zanna.us. Send a question, because I have a full hour, lot of questions, and I try to keep as much information as we can. So email me, or just also on Facebook. I'm right now here live. Send me the questions that we can talk to, we can ask to Mr. Brad Ackman, please. Okay, I'm not going to take calls the first hour. We kind of try to get as much information out. Okay, so we had the orange. After orange, what's going on, Brad?
After orange is condition red, which is a specific real threat. Okay, so again, you've nailed down the individual. It's that guy right there, and you're absolutely certain that this is a real threat. So at that point, you're going to draw the line in the sand, or set the mental trigger. It's basically an if-then operation. If this guy does that, then I'm doing this. Okay, whatever that is. He bumps me with a vehicle from behind, I'm driving away. He turns around with a gun in his hand, I'm shooting. Or whatever it might be. Of course, lots of different examples, lots of different scenarios, but it's an if-then. And you have to have made that decision in advance, because as this thing unfolds, you're running behind the power curve if you're trying to figure this stuff out on the spot. You got to make these decisions in advance. So that's condition red.
And what's after red? Anything else?
Red is the right. Red gives way to condition black, and condition black is when your opponent has stepped over that line in the sand and has initiated the action. In other words, condition black is the fight, and it's in condition black that you need the combat mindset, and the combat mindset is basically the ability to focus on the one thing that's going to let you win that fight, whatever that is. Perhaps you're focused on literally on the front sight or trigger control, but it may not be gunfighting at all. Perhaps you're driving a vehicle or dialing 911 or whatever the task is, but it's the ability to focus on that task instead of getting rattled and falling apart. And that's pretty tough. It can be tough to do. And that's where your training comes in. The more realistic your training, the easier it is to maintain a combat mindset under stress. So really that is, in a very small nutshell, mind you, but that is the color code of mental awareness and the combat mindset. And that's one of the most valuable lectures that we deliver at Front Sight because it allows you to avoid the gunfight, and if you cannot avoid it, then it helps you win it.
Exactly. And, just after the color of awareness that I found very important as not just gun owner, as a human being that I try to be aware of my environment and try to avoid problems. That's, I think, the best thing we can do. What I really found another lecture that was, I think, especially the first time. I mean, every time is great, but the first time was, oh my God, beautiful. Especially because, we are regular people, citizens, that normally we don't have this type of information and normally just for law enforcement or military. So I thought it was great. It's called the combat mindset. I know that there is a specific curriculum class you have to attend. In briefly, what is about this combat mindset?
Well, the combat mindset, as I just mentioned, is the ability to stay focused, concentrate on the task at hand so you can win the fight. And the combat mindset has several different steps to developing. One is realizing that the world can, in fact, be a fairly violent place. Now, it seems obvious, I know, I mean, it sounds like everybody should already understand that, but a lot of people don't. They stumble through life thinking that this is a happy-go-lucky place. And truthfully, it is most of the time until it isn't. And when this problem lands in your lap, it's too late. If you haven't thought about this stuff in advance, you're way behind the power curve. So another element in developing the combat mindset is understanding your opponent. I mean, who is this guy? He's a hardened criminal. He's a violent thug. He's probably a gang member. I mean, these are hardened criminals who are not going to give up easily. You're going to have to force this guy to stop. And that takes some intestinal fortitude. And a lot of people haven't thought about that. This isn't just a bar fight where a couple of punches are thrown. This is a hardened criminal and his buddies who are kicking down your door in a home invasion. That's a very difficult challenge if you haven't trained for it and you haven't thought about it.
Exactly, and that's one thing I learned. Really was for me so important. First of all, we all should start to visualize before things happen. What if that happened? Am I able? What am I going to do? I mean, because at that point, you don't want to think anymore. As you said, as the line is being crossed, and your training, of course, is going to be part of what you're really going to go. I mean, there is no more thinking, it's automatic. But more important, the training cannot kick in unless you did the moral decision to anything goes. Because that's, for me, the thing I really started to think, oh, my God, yes, I need to visualize. And then more important, at that point, whatever it takes. Because if I realize that this is not a game or a video game that, okay, I get knocked down and then I can replay again. I mean, we know nightmare stories everywhere, in every state.
Correct.
People get raped. People get burned. How would you feel if it was your wife or your girl or your daughter and you are completely powerless, tied up, like happened, I think, on the East Coast a few years ago, and you see them burning and being raped? I mean, you want to do whatever it takes. And I don't care if you have a gun. I don't care if you have a stick. I don't care if you have a brick or just your hand. It's your will that make the difference. And that's why I always say, I like one of the phrase that you have is your motto, Front Sight motto: any gun will do if you will do. You are the weapon. Can you articulate more about that?
Sure. A lot of people, well, let me just back up if I might, Luca, and talk just about the last 2 points about the combat mindset. You touched on them. One is training. Obviously, that's what we do. You have to have the proper training. It has to make sense. It has to be realistic. And finally, visualization, because there's no way you can experience in real time all of the possible situations. So you have to visualize or imagine those situations and, of course, to solve them. And the Olympic athletes, since we're in the middle of the Winter Olympics right now, fully understand this. They've been visualizing success for decades. That's part of their training. And that is a critical portion or a critical component of winning a gunfight as well. Visualize how many different ways this thing can unfold. How do you solve those problems? And just having had those thoughts allows you a much faster solution when it's happening for real. So visualization is key, and again, you already touched on that. So that would round out the combat mindset.
Exactly.
So back to your question. Tell me your question again. I'm sorry.
I mean, the question I was saying, we have this mindset that we were talking about, and we had, for example, the visualization. And, for example, now visualize, I'm here in the studio, I'm in California, and I'm some sort, even I'm a regular guy, but I'm sort of a public figure, okay? Everybody knows where I am. And this is not exactly what you call a secure facility, but I know that there is an entrance there, and I visualize that if somebody comes in that door, in that moment, in some sort of I don't know, carrying something that is not a bunch of flowers, or carrying something would be dangerous, like a handgun or a rifle, I'm not going to think about what is going on here. It's Halloween. No, I think that I already took my decision before I can even, think about it. So talking about visualization, I'm trying to prepare for that type of scenario, and I'm not paranoid, and that's why I also see, even I'm in California, I cannot carry my regular Glock. I got my M1 Garand with me. So it's preparation, visualization, and the combat mindset that we were talking about. It is also whatever it takes. That's pretty much, because I was saying, you are the weapon. I mean, any gun will do if you will do, because at the end of the day, we are the weapon. I don't care which gun you have. It's your will. The first weapon, right?
Right, that's correct. It doesn't matter which which gun you have, and you may not even have a gun.
Exactly.
As you say, this is about you, and it's about your mental abilities and your willingness to finish the fight.
Exactly.
Now, it's easier to finish the fight with some tools as opposed to others. I would much rather get into a gunfight with a Glock 22 .40 caliber perfectly suited handgun than I would a number 2 pencil.
Exactly.
Okay, so clearly some tools are better than others, but the combat mindset is about finishing the fight and really succeeding at all costs, whatever that takes.
Exactly, and I really realized what really brings me to the next level of also will is to understand the consequences if I fail. This is not like we were saying before, it's a movie. I'm going to be dead, but more important, whoever I need to protect is going to be dead with me, and that probably would be the best thing. Before you arrive to death, maybe a lot of bad things happen to you. And if you have a daughter or a son or a wife or whatever, a friend, and you know that when evil, it is real. As much as we want to deny, it is out there. And some sort of evil, and maybe we are not used to it because we live in a nice environment of regular law-abiding citizens. There are people that they really would like to hurt you just for the pleasure of it. It's not just about. So that's the truth.
And as you say, you as an individual, you may end up dead. Okay, but that's not the worst of it.
Exactly.
Having your family exposed to that kind of violence and that kind of evil is way worse than your own peril.
Exactly. So that's the point. I think we need to be aware, and we need to prepare mentally and morally before even we start to go into the training. That's for me what the more important thing I started to learn. Okay, Lisa, let's talk about something else. The 4 days handgun class, I think it's one of probably the first thing I would suggest to anybody who wants to safely be a gun owner with responsibility, and also the safety level that I think was amazing. Can we describe a little bit what happens in these 4 days handgun class at Front Sight, the basic 4 days?
Sure. We make no assumptions. In other words, we assume that the student really does not know much, if anything, about handgunning, so we start from a clean slate. Now, in some cases, of course, we have experienced shooters, and they, in fact, do have a good working knowledge of the gun, but we make no assumptions. We're assuming that they're coming in brand new. So we introduce the terminology of the gun, so they can have some skill of working with the pieces, parts, because they don't know the sights from the trigger, from the magazine well, so we have to introduce all that. And then we get right into safety, of course, the 4 universal firearms safety rules. People often ask me, look, if you have to pick one thing to take home from this course, what should it be? And it's not about focusing on the front sight or hitting the target or anything else. It's the 4 universal firearm safety rules, because they dictate safety. If you adhere to those 4 safety rules, nobody's going to get hurt, right? And that's good. So we get right into the 4 universal firearm safety rules, range commands. We get into the administration of running the course. Then we get started with some hands-on dry practice, and by dry practice we're talking about handling the weapon without ammunition. And that's good because it removes a lot of stress. The gun isn't going to go bang, there's no recoil, there's no loud noise. It gives them some comfort to work with the gun and learn the mechanics without the stress of actual ammunition. Then we get into some of the fundamentals of grip and stance and ready positions, plus focusing on the front sight, gently pressing the trigger. We ingrain all those skills into muscle memory in a dry practice environment. Then, of course, we start actually shooting. We go through loading and unloading of the gun. We do some shooting. And then really at the end of day 1, we give them a couple of malfunction techniques, because the gun, at some point, it's a mechanical item. It's going to malfunction, and you better have an idea of how to fix that immediately under stress so you can get right back in the gunfight. So we go through some malfunction clearances, and that rounds out day 1. Now, day 1 is really pretty busy, especially if you're a new shooter. There's a lot of information, and it can feel very overwhelming. But the good news is we go through those same blocks of instruction again and again. In other words, they get lots of repetition over the remaining period of the course so they can ingrain all that into muscle memory. And the goal at the end of 4 days is to have those skills in muscle memory so you don't have to think about them in a time of need. Okay, so that's day 1. Day 2, we do a lot more shooting. We do more malfunction clearances, etc. And we start, as you know, we start to infuse the philosophy of color-coded mental awareness, combat mindset, moral and ethical decisions associated with the use of deadly force, problems 2 and 3, which are criminal and civil liability, which will follow a gunfight. We also talk about selecting a proper weapon, tactical movement. These classroom lectures are infused throughout the 4 days into the curriculum. We also do, on day 3, we do some house clearing type of exercises. They're fairly basic in a 2 and 4 day course. We go through a tactics discussion, we do a little dry practice of tactical movement, and then we do a live fire house clearing exercise, which, as I say, is a high adrenaline type of a deal, but it is a fairly basic exercise because, again, we're making the assumption that these folks are relatively new to defensive handgunning. We save the real, dramatic house clearing type of exercises for the more advanced courses. We do a lot of that, but we don't hit them very hard with tactical exercises in a 4 day course. We do multiple targets. We do a man-on-man competition. And the reason we do a man-on-man competition isn't to figure out who the best shooter in the class is, because frankly that's totally irrelevant. But it does heap on a little bit of stress when you're up there on the line competing with another person because you want to do well. All eyes are on you. And that sort of self-induced stress starts to stimulate the stress that you're going to feel during a gunfight. It's just another way that we test you in terms of how well you're going to handle the stress. Day 4, we do more shooting, more reloads and malfunctions, more preparatory work for the skills test that you mentioned. You mentioned a point system. And essentially the skills test is the qualification course at the end of the 4 days of training, and it really tries to, provide a snapshot of your skill level at the end of 4 days. It does a couple of things. It gives you a benchmark to let you know how well you did. More importantly, what you need to work on in the future. And
Exactly.
we use that skill, whatever qualification you receive at the end of 4 days, we do use that as a prerequisite for more advanced training. So if you didn't do very well, and a lot of our students, they don't do all that well after 4 days because it's new material and they're still trying to learn it and they're still working with it. So the score that they receive on a skills test perhaps isn't as high as they would like, and that's totally fine. It tells them what they need to work on. And again, after they come back and take that course again, they do score higher on that skills test. then they're ready for more advanced training. So we do use that as a prerequisite for future use.
Perfect. Brad, I would like to say a couple of things. First of all, talking about safety, then I have a couple of questions from a listener from Bullhead City.
Okay.
First, one of the things that really impressed me the most, and I was completely another person, especially when after your class, after the 4-day class, forget about the marksmanship. Of course, I improve a lot. But the point, the safety. I could not go back anymore into a gun shop without freaking out. Or even when I had friends at the house, say, guys, stop. Look, muzzling. I don't care. It is amazing. The level of almost martial in a way that's so serious. Because, you guys, you got 30,000 and more people every year. And then I'll ask you some questions. On the line of, it's a very serious business. It's a dangerous business. This is not like going to some fishing competition, okay? You go there in a highly dangerous environment, but just because of the safety that you're so strict, and then you bring back home, I never felt more safe. And more important, I never felt more like bringing this with me, like it becomes part of my being the way I am. Now, for example, when I go in some gun shops, not every gun shop, but some gun shops or even gun owners that they had guns for years, they freak me out, seriously.
No, absolutely. In fact, when I was at the SHOT Show, which is a trade show, it stands for Shooting, Hunting, Outdoor Trade. It's essentially a monstrous gun show held in Las Vegas each year. I walk around in that show for an hour, and you are covered 100 different times by the muzzle.
Yes.
People pointing guns everywhere, and you're absolutely right. It drives me insane. And I said, this is it. I can't stand this anymore. I got to leave.
Yes.
So
Now,
you mentioned, sorry to step on you, Luca. You mentioned that we are very strict at Front Sight, and we are. We're serious about safety. But I do want to say that we're also very friendly. It's not a boot camp. This is very friendly, professional training. We're all smiles. Now, we do it with a strict, firm hand because we're definitely about safety at the end of the day. But I just want our listeners to know that, in fact, Front Sight is a very friendly environment, not a boot camp.
I agree. And what I like, a lot of people that normally they were intimidated. I've been meeting friends, I've been there a few times. And I would like to remind, to the listener that the first time I did pretty poorly, and I was happy because at least I realized how much I have to learn. But then, finally, I did my distinguish a few times. Now, every time I go normally, I distinguish. And but the point is, I like the attitude because when you go there, it's not like a boot camp. If you want to stop, you stop. If you want to take a break, take a break. It's like a family environment for families. And speaking about families, I have a question from a lady from Bullhead, and I'm just reading it the way she writes it on Facebook. Can people bring their whole family? Can they bring their wife and their kids to the course?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the main clients that we see. Husband, wife, and the kids. The whole family comes to Front Sight, and they take a 4-day defensive handgun course. We see that a lot. In fact, we encourage it. The only concern is the children's age. We have children's courses. Well, we have two different children's courses. One is called children's. The other is youth. Child is from 5 to 10. Youth is from 11 to 15. So we have a child-specific curriculum for those ages. However, if the child from age 11 and up wants to attend a regular firearms course with the parents, they're welcome to do so. So from 11 and up, they can definitely join a 2 or 4 day defensive handgun course, or frankly any course for that matter, as long as the parents are with them in the course. The parents have taken that exact course before, and we do a student coach arrangement. In other words, we pair you up as a shooter and kind of a shooting buddy. So as long as the parent is functioning in that role with the child, we love to have those kids on the shooting ranges as well.
Perfect. There's so much more. We have almost at the end of the first hour. I can't believe it. If you want, I can keep you the next 10 minutes after the first hour. I have a couple more questions if it's okay for you.
I'm all yours as long as you want me.
Perfect. So, listen, I hope Jamie got the answer. And now, talking about, first of all, this system of points, because people think, oh, my God, I'm going to be, judged by somebody. I would like to remind that this is not a competition with others, but it is a way for yourself to understand your level. Because, what I like about Front Sight is, especially, it's like knowing your limits, okay? Maybe put that 1 second. For example, if I have a truck that I know that my truck can go more than 75 miles an hour, and I'm trying to do some sort of a dangerous maneuver, I'm not going to try it. And same things, I should be able to know what is my limits to deliver, for example, present my gun into a fight from a conceal. So what is the standard for the test that normally, just to give an idea, so people can understand at home if they even have that going on, from a concealed jacket, whatever you have, from the holster, and let's say at 5 yards, what is the standard that the person must achieve according to the test for a control pair?
Well, just one additional thought before I answer that question,
Yes.
and that is the skills test, as we call it, is really an optional activity. It's not a mandatory part of the curriculum. Some people aren't really interested in taking that test, and that's totally fine. They can opt out of it. That's not an issue. But most people do, in fact, take the test because they want to see how well they're going to score on it. Okay, so with that said, the standard that we're looking for is roughly a controlled pair. Okay, that's 2 shots fired to the thoracic cavity, that's the chest of your adversary, that land in about a hand span in that thoracic cavity from 7 yards from concealment. Okay, in other words, the weapon is concealed under a jacket or a shirt in about a second and a half. And that is the standard, roughly, that we use for that distance for that exercise. So a controlled pair from 7 yards under concealment in a second and a half. Now, we do a lot of other stuff as well. I mean, we do different distances and headshots and reloads. It's a very all-encompassing test. But that standard is really what we hang our hat on because that represents kind of the average gunfight. From concealment, conversational distance, 2 shots, second and a half. If you can do that, you're doing pretty well.
Brad, stay there. See you soon in the next hour. Give me a few minutes.
All right.
Visit NP Gunsmith and Sales at 4470 Highway 95, Suite 13 at Camp Mojave Road in Fort Mojave. If you're looking for a special gun, accessory, or shooter's gift, NP Gun Sales blows the competition out of the water. Automatics, revolvers, ammo, archery supplies, knives, and valuable advice from our knowledgeable weapons masters make NP Gunsmith and Sales the shooter's paradise. Stop by or call us at 928-444-5905. He's a songwriter, a poet, a rifleman. I'm not afraid. And a constitutional activist. I'm not afraid. Italian by birth. I'm not afraid. American by choice. Luca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com. Lyrics for your mind, music for your heart. Luca Zanna's new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom.